everybody, it's Spicey Kai. Today I want to school you on how the bail system works in this country. We're going to talk about how it works in the state systems as well as the federal systems. Now, if you came on this video to discuss about whether or not R. Kelly is guilty, you're on the wrong video. If you came here to debate about whether this is fair or whether it's not fair or any of that, you're on the wrong video. This video is specifically a response to the fact that my people don't understand how bail works. So you have some people that are calling all of this unfair, but they don't understand that in a way, no matter how you feel about R. Kelly, you're right, it is unfair. But it's not unfair because they're picking on R. Kelly. It's unfair because our country's bail system is horrific. And at the end of the day, the Khalif Browders of the world, there are thousands of them. They exist. So this is my way of taking the opportunity, since it's out there, it's huge, it's big right now because of what R. Kelly's going through. This is an opportunity for me to school my people on how bail actually works. Because if you are disgusted by what's happening with R. Kelly based on bail, then you need to be disgusted on a much bigger level. Because the whole entire bail system is disgusting. And it's not just about R. Kelly. But this is a good time for you to use that rage to help those of us that are fighting for change in this country make those changes happen. Let's get to the content. But before we get started, why don't you go ahead and hit that thumbs up and make sure you share this video so we can educate our people on how the bail system works and how we can all do our part to invoke change. And if you're new to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell so every time I drop a new video about things like this, you'll get a notification. Now let's get to the content.
Bail is when you pay money to get out of jail while you wait for your trial. It's been practiced for centuries, but critics think it creates a two-tiered justice system, where the rich get to go home while the poor have to stay behind bars. Those in favor of keeping bail argue it's an effective way of keeping potential criminals off the street. So what's the deal? Is America's bail system fair, or does it need reform? The founding principle of the US justice system is fairness, right? Innocent until proven guilty, the right to a speedy trial. That's how it's supposed to work, in theory. In practice, well, check this stat out. In the US, right now, there are more than 450,000 people accused of a crime but not yet convicted of anything, sitting in jail cells as they wait for their trials. There's no national bail system, but in general, this is how it works. If you get arrested, a judge takes a look at your charge and makes a decision about what to do with you until your court date. The judge has a few different options. Option 1, you're released on your own recognizance, which means you simply promise to return to court. Now that can happen if it's a low-level offense and there's no prior criminal history. Option 2, the judge makes you stay in jail until your court hearing. Now that's actually pretty rare and is really only used for people who are considered a danger to society. Option 3, the judge sets bail. If you can pay it, you're let out of jail, and if you show up to your trial, you get that money back. If you don't have enough money to cover bail, you have to stay in jail until your court date. Now that can last a couple days or even weeks.
Or even years.
That doesn't sound so great, right? Well, you can pay a commercial bail bondsman to cover the bail for you. You pay around 10% of the total bail amount, and the bondsman agrees to pay the court the full amount if you don't show up. However, that 10% is non-refundable, so even if you show up to all your court dates and are proven innocent, the bondsman keeps your money. Now this is how most people cover their bail.
Actually, this is how it works in the state court systems. However, unfortunately for R. Kelly, he's in the federal jail system. One more thing. This is a quick disclaimer to my channel huggers. You're generally used to more in-depth videos from me than this. If you have no interest in R. Kelly content whatsoever, feel free to click off this video, because before the end of this weekend, I will definitely be publishing another one with more in-depth content. It'll go much deeper than this, but for the purpose of not creating clickbait, this video specifically, it talks about the bail system and how it affects R. Kelly specifically. So if you don't care anything about R. Kelly content, feel free to click off the video and just wait for the other one coming up soon. Back to the content. The following is from the Federal Defenders of New York website. This is basically the public defender for federal inmates still facing charges in court. It's entitled Bail and Pretrial Detention FAQ. How does bail or bond work in federal court? Now, I'm going to read the part that has to do with R. Kelly specifically. If you want to read the rest, I put the link in the description box, so feel free to check it out for yourself. It reads, bail in federal court is very different from the bail in the state system. Bail bondsmen are rarely used in federal court, and for indigent defendants, there is rarely a cash component to federal bail. Indigent means poor. Instead, the judge will set your bond amount with conditions that may include co-signers to ensure you return to court. A bond is basically a contract between you, your co-signer, and the government. This contract requires that you show up to your court date and comply with the conditions of your bond. If you do not, the government can collect up to the full amount of the bond from you and each of your co-signers. So basically what that means is that if someone wants to bond you out of federal jail, they cannot use a bail bondsman. That means they can't come up with 10% and allow a bail bondsman to cover the other 90%. When you're facing federal charges, you have to come up with the 100% amount of the bail. The problem is, if your bail is set at $1 million, if you have access to $1 million, your $1 million could be tied up for weeks, months, possibly years. Therefore, anyone who posts your bail and then starts going through financial problems at some point in life, they are going to freak out because they really need that $1 million back. Who is going to post this bail for you? Not because they're worried that you won't go to court, but because you have to be extremely financially secure in order to basically loan the federal government $1 million and have no idea when you're going to get it back, and know for a fact you're not getting it back with interest. Your co-signer will be contacted by a lawyer or a paralegal from your attorney's office so they can explain the conditions of the bond. The co-signer will also have to come in to the U.S. Attorney's Office for an interview. So it's not even just about the money. Think about that. That's a pretty heavy interview. Your co-signer will also need to bring in the following documents to the interview with the United States Attorney Office: valid photo ID, social security card. 2 most recent pay stubs mean they want to know that you actually make enough to have that type of money. They don't want you using illegal funds to bail someone out of jail. Most recent W-2 form. That means we want to know that you didn't just come up with this money out the clear blue sky over the last couple of pay stubs. How much did you make last year? And most recent bank account statement. That means if you believe the woman that quote unquote loaned R. Kelly the money for his bail is actually telling the truth, and that's really what happened, then she has to be financially secure enough to where it shows in her bank account that she had $1 million chilling somewhere. Now, if you believe the narrative that it's actually R. Kelly's money, because that's what TMZ is reporting. And then there's this. Prosecutors say Kelly's claim he's broke is misleading because he continues to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in royalties for his music. What's more, the government argues it found out he's redirecting these royalties to the bank account of a childhood friend, but could easily redirect the dough to himself. What this means is, in order for them to funnel the $1 million to her, so it looks like it was her money, they would have to show the most recent bank account statement. Therefore, R. Kelly would have to sit in jail at least 30-something days in order for a bank account statement to be issued that shows the $1 million has been in her account for at least those 30 days. I hope that makes sense. In the beginning, people thought it was unfair that he was sitting there all that time and no one was trying to help. But in actuality, if you believe that narrative, more than likely, it just looked like that because she had to let that $1 million sit in her account for at least 30-something days in order to get that bank statement that showed she had that money in her bank account. So to be clear, what is indigent? As an adjective, indigent means poor, needy. As a noun, it means a needy person. Basically, there are only two main narratives going on with R. Kelly's bail right now. Either you believe the narrative that he's poor and he's a needy person, or you believe he actually is not broke. He does have money. He's just extremely smart about what he's doing with his case. So let's go over both of those narratives. Once again, bail bondsmen are rarely used in federal court. And for needy defendants, there is rarely a cash component to a federal bail. In other words, generally, if you're a poor defendant, you don't have the cash for your bail. So basically, just like any other federal inmate that's caught up in the jail system, either you have the cash or you don't. This is in no relation to whether he's guilty or not guilty or anything like that. This is the way the federal jail system works. Period. Point blank. Bottom line. It's not about him. It's about the actual federal bail system. Now, if you believe this woman right here, Valencia Love, loaned R. Kelly the money for his bail, then you've also probably noticed in the news that not only did this put her family in a financial bind, but her mother started being harassed at her business. This is a business she actually owns, and it pretty much has gone down the drain because of the industry that it's related to, and it being related to his name now because of her actions. And this is to people that are mad at her for requesting the money back. If you believe she actually loaned it to him, you have to understand that now not only she is in a bind, but her family is in a bind financially because of this. And therefore, because she was probably extremely naive about the way court systems work, she probably thought as a fan and a friend, she didn't understand that trials like these take years. Literally, they take years. Here's the problem. Had he actually, if they actually honored the bond and let him out, it takes longer for a person out of custody to go to trial than people in custody, especially if they had access to money, because that means your expensive lawyers can buy you more and more and more and more time. You usually get more and more and more and more time when you're out of custody. So I'm saying that to say, don't be angry with her. She didn't know that it was going to probably take years for her to get this money back. She thought it was going to be very, very quick because most fans and friends of his do think that. It's called faith. But the court system doesn't work on faith. So that's just not how it goes. Now, if you believe R. Kelly is not broke, but he could possibly be facing some type of financial troubles of some sort, then you have to take in consideration that this is also his friend. Therefore, it only makes sense that she at least try to go into the court, or send her attorney, of course, into the court to beg for the money back. Because if it actually is a friend-to-friend thing, but it's really R. Kelly's money, we all understand why he would need the money back now. because that $1 million would go towards a better attorney. So it would only make sense that she asked for the money back in order to funnel it back into him as far as attorney fees. Now, if you're one of his fans that are pissed off about the fact that there's a rumor going around that says that she already got the money back, that his camp already paid her back, yet she still sent her attorney into court to ask for the money back, think about it. If this is really his friend, it's still the same plan as what I just said. More than likely, because I had enough sense to know it, so I'm sure his attorneys knew that more than likely the judge was going to deny the request. They do not give bails back before the trial is over. Period. It's not going to happen. That's that. They knew that the judge was probably going to say no. Therefore, they went on and paid her back the money so she could still funnel it back to him to pay for his attorney fees, because at the end of the day, he told the courts that he's indigent. So he can't all of a sudden come up with an extra $1 million to pay his attorneys. It has to look like the money is continuously coming from somewhere else. Now, if you're an R. Kelly fan and you think this is unfair, here's the deal. I'm sorry to say, but this is not about R. Kelly. This is about the United States of America's bail system. R. Kelly is not facing anything that other people in his demographics are facing. Nothing whatsoever. This is not a special situation just for this celebrity. This is something that thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans face every single day in this country. This could be your child someday. Think about that. Khalif Browder spent 3.5 years in Rikers for a crime he never got to go to trial for. The charges were eventually dropped after 3.5 years. So imagine what his mother went through knowing that he had to go through that because she didn't have $300. I'm sorry to say, this isn't about R. Kelly. If you think this system is unfair to R. Kelly, check this out.
What does justice look like in America?
It's about literal generations of poverty being attacked because people cannot afford their freedom.
Almost 500,000 people are sitting in a jail cell tonight, and they haven't been found guilty of any crime.
Here, people are actually being held solely because they cannot afford to pay. That's the only reason.
This is cash bail.
$500, $1,000, $5,000. In communities where families are one check away from devastation, bail is devastation.
Simply having money does not make you a better human being. It's just purely a wealth-based detention scheme, full stop.
Okay, picture this.
You're driving down the street. You make an illegal U-turn. A cop pulls up your record. You've got a warrant for not paying some speeding tickets. You get booked. A judge uses what's called a bail schedule to set a predetermined amount. If you can post it, you walk out. If not, you sit in jail until trial.
That's bail, paying money to the court so you can secure your release from jail while you wait for your trial. But what if you can't afford it? Take a look. Most of the people in jail right now across the US haven't been found guilty of any crime. In the eyes of the law, they're innocent. That's almost 500,000 people just waiting in what's called pre-trial detention.
It's kind of backwards. First you get punished, and then at the end of your jail time, they figure out if you actually did it.
The American justice system is actually rigged to favor the rich.
And being rich can mean different things to different people. 40% of Americans can't afford to come up with $400 in an emergency.
You're a grandmother in Texas. You're babysitting your grandson. He runs out into the street. Nothing bad happens, but a driver calls the cops. You get booked. Your bail is set at $2,000. You can't afford that, so you sit in jail for 2 weeks until a community group advocates for your release.
And if you think that's bad, check this out.
You're a mom of 7 kids. You're accused of stealing 2 beers. You get booked. A judge sets bail at $15,000. You can't pay, so you spend 9 months in jail. You lose your job. You miss your grandmother's funeral, and you get separated from your kids.
We often think about young Black men being the ones behind bars, but women are becoming a critical group who are locked up and forgotten. More women than ever before are locked up in America.
I was in jail for 2.5 months, away from my kids. I lost my apartment. I lost my job.
80% of them are mothers. Many haven't even been convicted of a crime.
I am 100%, 1,000% convinced that women who are locked up in cages cannot get the wellness that they need in that place.
When I think of the many things that happen to Black women in jail who just disappear, I started to panic.
Being locked up has a profound impact, not just on these women, but on their kids as well.
You have mothers that can't get to their children. They're not a flight risk. Why are they still sitting in jail? I don't understand it. I really don't.
Jasmine sat in jail for 2 months because she couldn't make bail.
Where am I supposed to get this money from? People don't have $500 just stored away. They be like, oh, that's nothing. Well, that is something when you're working check to check.
Oh, you think you getting, I got it.
Jasmine's charges were later dropped, but the impact of her time in jail is still being felt 2 years later.
I had to rebuild everything, and I'm still rebuilding.
By the time she got out, she'd been evicted. All of her things had been sort of ransacked and sent away. Her children had been moved across the country to live with her sister in Las Vegas. She lost her job. And this is all, again, without any serious charge. People's entire lives are uprooted and destroyed simply because of a criminal allegation.
Problem is, when it comes to R. Kelly, this is not a simple charge.
Once inside, women don't have access to basic care.
They give you 2 pads for your whole menstrual cycle that you end up using toilet paper in order to supplement for what's not happening.
And it can be even harder on pregnant women. Many states still shackle women while they're giving birth. Janice Dotson-Stevens.
My mother was in jail on a simple trespassing charge. She was nonviolent. She wasn't a flight risk. So why is she sitting there anyway on a $300 bond, $30 to get out?
The Texas grandmother was never found guilty of a crime, but she stayed in jail for 5 months until the day she died.
My mom suffered for over 40 years of mental illness. She went over, I believe, 151 days without her medication. So every day she sat there, her mental state worsened with each day that passed.
Janice lost 136 pounds while she was in jail. Almost a pound every day.
So that tells me again that she wasn't eating and no one was paying attention. I believe she was ignored to death.
There's no universal standard of care for people who need mental health treatment in jail. That's something that largely went unnoticed until the death of Sandra Bland. Sandra died in jail while waiting for her family to come up with $500 for bail. Studies show that kids with a mom who are locked up are more likely to drop out of school and have a higher chance of ending up behind bars themselves.
They're human beings. I just wish we could find a way. We need change, especially in the jail system. We need change.
In a perfect world, you'd get arrested and tried on the same day. But in reality, it can take so much longer than that.
There's almost an expectation in this pull yourself up by your bootstraps society that the person just needs to do it themselves. They just need to get their life together. But what no one is talking about is this overarching oppressive system.
In addition to the federal cases, R. Kelly has also been charged with serious crimes in Illinois as well as Minnesota. That means that even if the federal judge does let him out on bail, he still has to face paying bail in both of those states.
In the US, right now, there are more than 450,000 people accused of a crime but not yet convicted of anything, sitting in jail cells as they wait for their trials. But a large portion of them remain behind bars simply because they can't pay their bail. If you don't have enough money to cover bail, well, you can pay a commercial bail bondsman to cover the bail for you. You pay around 10% of the total bail amount, and the bondsman agrees to pay the court the full amount if you don't show up. However, that 10% is non-refundable, so even if you show up to all your court dates and are proven innocent, the bondsman keeps your money. Check out these stats from New York City. In lower level cases where the defendants could afford bail or no bail was set, about half were eventually convicted. However, when defendants were locked up until their cases were resolved, the conviction rate jumped to 92%. The main takeaway from the report? Let me quote it directly. The data suggests that detention itself creates enough pressure to increase guilty pleas. What do you think? Is America's bail system fair? Let us know in the comments below.
So even if R. Kelly had gotten out of the federal jail on bail, he would still have those other two bills to face in those other two states. And that basically means he would have to find a bail bondsman because he says he's broke. The bottom line is, if he was able to pay cash on those two state bills, then he's basically putting money in their banks. And once all his trials are over, whether he's found guilty or not guilty, the bail money would be refunded. However, if you go through a bail bondsman, you only pay 10%, and that 10% becomes that bail bondsman's fee. You don't get that back. So at the end of the day, there's really no way for R. Kelly to get out of this mess until all of his trials are over, because no bail bondsman, even if you have the money, is going to take this situation. So let's say the federals let him out, and then he goes and deals with whatever's happening in Illinois, and then somehow he tries to post bond in Illinois. The bail bond is going to look at the fact that he's already out on bond for the feds. They're going to also look at the fact that he also has another charge pending in a whole nother state, and they're not going to do the bond for him. Let's stop blaming all these different entities for what is, and let's try to make some changes. Like I said, if you're appalled about this happening to R. Kelly, use your anger to help those of us who know that it's on a way greater level than this, to help us make change. Please feel free to leave your comments, questions, and whatever else you need to say in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Spicey out.